The secret of the soldier from the Great War. In 1914, Europe plunged into chaos with the outbreak of the First World War. The trenches became the theater of bloody battles, where every day could be the last day for the soldiers. It is in this tragic context that our story begins, with a young French soldier named Julien Dubois. Julien, a young man of 20 years, had just left behind his peaceful village in Provence. He had left behind his family and friends, only taking a photo of his fiancée copyright E, Marguerite. Julien was not a career soldier, merely a simple farmer called up to defend the country. His fear inside him, he was determined, however, to go back home safely. At the beginning of the war, Julien and his comrades were sent to the Western Front. The trenches were damp and rat-infested, the food scarce, and the sound of shells deafening. Despite the horrible conditions, the soldiers managed to keep a semblance of normalcy. Every evening, Julien wrote a letter to Marguerite, promising her he would come back. One day, while they were on the front line, a superior officer arrived with a new mission: to storm a heavily fortified trench of the Germans. The announcement made the men shiver, but obedience was their only choice. At dawn, Julien and his companions prepared themselves, knowing well that many would not return. During the assault, chaos reigned. The ground was shaken by explosions, whistling bullets, and cries of pain. Julien, despite the terror, moved forward resolute. He was suddenly thrown to the ground by an explosion. As he rose, he realized he was separated from his unit, lost in the middle of nowhere. In his confusion, he saw an injured hostile figure lying not far away from him. Cautiously, Julien approached and found a heavily wounded German soldier, weakly crying for help. Against all odds, and despite the hate the war had fostered, Julien couldn't just let a man die like that. He took a bold decision. Dragging the soldier to a makeshift shelter, he began to treat his wounds using whatever he found. Days passed by, and an unspoken truce settled between them. The German soldier, whose name was Karl, was grateful, and slowly regained his health because of Julien's care. They managed to communicate despite the language barrier, finding that they shared similar aspirations, an aching desire for peace, and returning home to their loved ones. One morning, the sounds of battle seemed farther away, and Karl pointed to the safest route for Julien to reach the French lines. Before they parted ways, Karl gave him a letter, pleading for his help to get it delivered to his family in Germany. In turn, Julien gave Karl a letter for Marguerite, in case he did not survive. Julien managed to rejoin his unit after days of wandering. He told his story, but few believed him, for their hearts had been hardened by the war. Nevertheless, Julien kept Karl's letter, determined to honor his promise. War came to an end in 1918. Julien returned home, being welcomed as a hero by his family and Marguerite. He married her, but never forgot Karl. With the help of the Red Cross, he managed to get the letter to Karl's family, joyfully discovering that Karl had also survived and reunited with his loved ones. Years later, the two former enemies became friends through correspondence, thus showing that even in the worst horrors of war, humanity always triumphs. And that is the story of Julien and Karl, two soldiers from opposing sides who united in the gesture of bravery and compassion. Their improbable friendship remained a testament to hope and reconciliation, even after the darkest moments of history.